Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel is Maki's Closet. On today's class we are going to be drafting a basic corset pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is to mark out my vertical measurement, which is my shoulder to bust line, my shoulder to under bust line, my shoulder to waist line or my shoulder to navel, then the half in my top length, and then I'm going to mark half inch for turn up. I'm going to repeat my vertical measurements on the pattern or on the paper again. I'm going to repeat it continuously. After that, I'm going to place my tape and mark out all my vertical measurements and join it with a straight line. Then I'm going to outline it, my bust line, my under bust, my navel or waist line. Then I'm going to indicate where my top ends is just half inch, so I'm just going to add that half inch below. Next is to mark my chest line. To get your chest line, you divide your bust by 6 and add 1.5. So I have approximately 7. So I'm just going to mark that 7 throughout and then outline it with a rule and then indicate my chest line. I'll mark my neckline, which is 3 by 3, the standard neckline. So I'm just going to mark 3 and connect with my French curve. After doing that, the next step I'm going to take is to measure my shoulder line. So my shoulder divided by 2, my shoulder is 14, divided by 2, I have 7 inches. So I'm going to make sure I have that 7 inches, and then I'm going to connect the line down to my chest line. Then I'll draw my armhole curve. After drawing my armhole curve, the next step I'm going to take is to mark my bust span divided by 2, which is 7 divided by 2, I have 3.5. So I'm going to mark it from my chest line, my bust line, my under bust, my waistline, and the length of my top. After doing that, I'm just going to place a rule and connect the lines and draw a straight line. The next step is to mark your dart intake. So I'm going to mark 1 inch at my left and at my right, at my top length, my waist length, and my under bust. Then I'll connect my line with a rule. After connecting my line, I'm going to place my tape at my bust point. I'm going to measure the distance from my bust to my under bust. So the distance I have is 3. So I'm just going to mark that 3 round. That's forming my bust radius. So the distance from my bust to my under bust is called bust radius. So I'm going to take it round. I'll place my tape and outline my dart line. Sorry, the video is not clear at this point. So I'm just going to outline my dart lines. Then I'm going to draw it out. Then the next step I'm going to do is to place my French curve. If you don't have a French curve, you can use a freehand sketch. So from my bust point, I'm going to draw it, connecting it to that 1 inch dart. Then I'll turn my French curve and connect to the other side of it too. So from there, I'm going to go down by half from my chest line. If you don't want to reveal any cleavage, you can just leave it at your chest line, or if you want to reveal more cleavage, you can just go down by 1. So from that, I'm going to go in by half because there's a little space between the busts. You can use 0.7 or half. I won't advise you to use 1, it will be too wide. I will also mark my dart intake at that my bust radius on top. So I'm just going to mark 1 inch at both sides. Remember, extend that line to your bust radius. The 1 inch that you marked at your chest line, extend it to your bust radius and outline that ½ inch you came down from your cleavage. Also place your French curve and connect. So at this other point, I slightly made a mistake, so I'm just going to place my French curve and connect it back again to that 1 inch that I marked earlier at my bust radius. So I'm just going to place my French curve and connect it back to that ½ inch I came down at my chest line. So if you don't have a French curve, you can also use a freehand sketch. After connecting, I'm just going to place my French curve and connect it from my under bust to that ½ inch I came down from, following my bust radius guideline, that 3.5 I marked round. I'll make sure my French curve touches that line, and then I'm just going to place it and connect. After connecting, at the other side of the bust, you notice that the bust is fuller or bigger. So I'm going to go out by ½ inch from that 3.5 bust radius I marked and go down by half at the upper part. If your bust is less than 40, you can use 5 inches. Then if your bust is 45 to 50 or the rest, you can use 1 inch. So I'm just going to draw out that line. That will now be my chest line, my new chest line. Then I'm going to place my French curve and connect to that line, new mark that I made. The next step I'm going to take is to place my French curve and connect from the center to the side of the cup. With that, my cup is ready, and I'm going to place my rule and outline my new chest line. I'll label the other part of my chest line C meaning center and the other one S meaning side. I'll also do so for the pattern below. After doing that, the next step I'm going to take is to place my bust circumference. I'm going to place my tape at my cup area or at my bust area. I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 plus the 2 inches that I took out, and I'm going to add 2 inches sewing allowance, which you can trim off later or just use for any little adjustment. So from there, I'm just going to connect it to the line, then go to my under bust circumference divided by 4 plus 2 inches that intake, and then 2 inches sewing allowance. Then I'm going to move to my navel or waistline. My navel divided by 2 plus 2 inches that intake plus 2 inches sewing allowance. Note, the 2 inches sewing allowance is not compulsory. You can use 1 inch or you can just use half for adding. Then I'll extend that line to my top length and then connect it from my under bust to my navel and place my French curve and connect it back to my bust line. After connecting, I'm just going to cut out my pieces and cut out my dart areas, then show you the final pattern. So this is the final pattern I've cut out already, so we'll move over to drafting the back pattern. So for the back, I'm just going to mark out all my vertical measurements: my chest line, my bust line, my under bust, my navel, and the top length. The next step I'm going to take is to mark my bust pan divided by 2. That's my nipple to nipple divided by 2. And note, I did not add a zipper allowance. So I'm just going to mark it and then draw a straight line connecting from my chest line to my bust, to my under bust, to my navel, and my top length. After doing that, I'm just going to mark a dart intake. I'm just going to mark half on both sides at my top length, half on both sides, and I'm going to connect it back to my chest line with my rule. I'm just going to mark and connect. The back pattern is plain. We are not going to do much at the back. Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Maki's Closet. If it's your first time viewing my channel, you're highly welcome. Please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn up the notification button. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always watching my video. Just like I said earlier, I did not put any zipper allowance, but it's not a standard. You can use a zipper allowance if you want. You can add a zipper allowance, or you can just use loop or a modesty panel. So from there, I'm just going to mark my chest line divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance. Then I will extend it to my chest line. I'm going to mark my under bust divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance. Then I'll go over to my navel divided by 4, or my waistline divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance. Then I'm going to extend it to my top length, and then connect it with a rule back to my under bust and connect it back to my chest line. After connecting from my bust to my under bust, the next step is to create a design or a pattern you want for the back. You can leave your back pattern this way, or you can alter it. So I'm going to place my tape and mark 2 inches down. That's at my bust area. You can use any measurement of your choice. You can decide to go down by 1 inch or half. So from there, I'm just going to mark at my chest line, go down by half, because we went down by half at my chest line at the front pattern. Then I'm going to connect it back. Note, like I said, you can leave your back pattern the way it was, just come down by half at your chest line, or you can decide to alter it. After connecting the back, we are done with the back pattern, and we are done with drafting the corsets. Please, if you find this video very interesting and educative, please hit on the subscribe button. Please also like, share, and don't forget to turn up the notification button to get updates when I post new videos on my channel. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. And also drop your comment at the comment section, or any question you have regarding this corset pattern we drafted.